Welcome back to Talks in Class. I'm Jenna, and I'm here for another dose of time travel. I hope everybody has had a nice week. You guys, if you know anyone in Southern California, or California in general, please know that we don't mean to complain endlessly about this rain, but oh my God, it has been raining for 2 months. Even if I was still on the East Coast, I would be complaining about this. So I don't know how real, lifetime Californians can deal with this. The people who are used to having really nice weather all the time. Because to be honest, I'm used to having really bad weather all the time. And this has been really, really difficult. We had another few days this past week of just really heavy pouring rain. And, just to say I'm over it would be an understatement. I am doing whatever I can to welcome spring, to will spring to come to us. I'm getting the spring wardrobe ready. I have the self-tanner ready to go. I'm about to give myself a springy manicure. This is the time of year when I just decide in my head that it's spring and I'm gonna make it happen. You know what I mean? It's time. I've been really into flowy dresses and button-down shirts for this spring. Actually, I'm in my pajamas right now, but I just threw on a nice button-down shirt over my pajamas and boom, I look put together, I love that for us. I love stripes too. I love a stripe in general, but I'm really glad to see this sort of kind of 2010s, 80s revival type of a stripe popping back up all over the place again this spring. I also bought this kind of white, kind of tiered maxi peasant skirt that I'm really excited about. It reminds me so much of those boho skirts that I was obsessed with around 2005, 2006, and I would wear them with a low slung belt around my hips and a sequined shrug and little sequined ballet flats. Actually, oh my God, did you guys see? There's this viral video of this girl going around, this young girl, and she's talking about how much she loves belts right now, but not belts with a purpose, pointless belts like we wore. So she's got them around her hips. And the belts that she's showing in the video are these very Western boho kind of 70s inspired belts that look exactly like, the useless low slung belts that we were all wearing in the mid 2000s over skirts like the one that I am looking forward to wearing this spring. And of course, all the millennials are losing their minds over this video. I don't know. It's funny how certain trends that come back around, those are kind of just okay, whatever. We don't have a super strong reaction to them. But then when other things pop back up, it's a different kind of reaction. It's almost a physical reaction of horror to see some of these things again. And that's how I felt when I saw the gaucho pants come back, honestly, which have been rebranded now as wide leg cropped yoga pants. Maybe it's because certain trends just feel so assigned to a specific time period. And usually it's these kind of fast and furious fads, that kind of took us all by storm really quickly and then disappeared just as quickly. I feel like chain and leather belts around the hips falls into that category. So it feels shocking to see it again. It almost feels like, are they playing a joke on us? But if you see the video, the girl looks really cute. So I'm not mad about it. I actually have always loved that look in general, just all of it. So I'm excited to see that come back around. The cute boho belts, I need to clarify. The hip belts, the leather ones, not the big tacky fake pleather ones that we wore around our actual waistline in the later 2000s and early 2010s. Those are not my friends. But anyway, let's start, as always, with my What Good Happened this week. By the way, if you're new, the What Good Happened is just something that I personally try to journal every morning as part of my little morning routine. It's just reflecting on, those good things that happen, no matter how small. So they often are just really small, kind of silly things. But I think it's a really great way to kind of shift your perspective and just bring focus to those little things that bring joy through the day, because I really think that stuff adds up, especially when you start to pay attention to it. So this week, I feel like I had this big burst of kind of creative energy. And honestly, this is the first time I felt like this in a while. And I'm sure there are a lot of reasons for that, but it's probably been at least a couple of months, if not longer, honestly. You know, the first time where I felt like I just had a bunch of ideas for videos that I wanted to make, and also that those ideas were fully coming to life in my mind. I feel like sometimes I go through these ruts where I don't have ideas in general, but more often I have ideas, but they're just kind of vague ideas that aren't really fully formed yet. So I'm not ready to actually make them into a video or any piece of content yet. I think this is probably very common for people who do all sorts of creative work. You're not going to feel creative all the time. But this past week, I have just felt like I was in the flow, you know, in the zone. I made some fun videos that I really enjoyed making and that I think are fun. I'm kind of in my off the rails era when it comes to content, especially short form content on like TikTok and stuff. I don't know. I'm trying to have fun with it. I'm trying not to box myself into this super specific niche or just overthink my content. And I think that has given me this creative spark that I've been missing for a while. And that's a very broad what good happened, but it is something that has been a noticeable change, and it's nice. Maybe there's something going on with the planets or something. I don't know. Can somebody tell me? Is there some creative energy happening in the universe? Because it was a noticeable shift for me. Or is this just my brain coming out of winter hibernation mode or trying to come out of winter hibernation mode? I don't know. Either way, it's good, and I'm excited. And I'm excited this week to continue our conversation from last week about college life in the 2000s, because I have more to say. Last week, I talked about what it was like being a college freshman in 2005 when I personally started college. And this week, I want to talk about the later years of college, because I think that's a really interesting thing about college, at least here in the US, is that it really spans from our late teens into early adulthood. And so much happens to you in between the ages of, you know, roughly 18 to 22 years old. So today I want to talk about the part of college when we were old enough to enter a bar legally, we'll say. My college experience personally was a little bit non-traditional. I took a year off from 2006 to 2007, which was prompted by an accident that happened to me at a party in 2006, but that's a long story for another day. But I took that year off, and when I returned to college in 2007, I was essentially just a year behind all of my peers, which I made up by taking summer school, and I ended up graduating only a semester late. But other than that, I followed pretty much the traditional college path. I turned 21 when I was in college. I graduated in my early 20s, you know, just like a lot of people who are my age and started college in the mid 2000s. That year off for me, though, kind of gives me this marker that divides my college career into two different eras. But I think even if you don't have something like that, there is this divide between kind of the two parts of college for a lot of people. There are the early days when you very likely live on campus, you drink cheap beer in basements, and you have to pregame really hard before you go anywhere because you're not old enough to have a legal drink, again, if you're in the US. And then there are the later days when you probably live off campus in a crappy apartment with multiple roommates, and your partying involves going to bars because you were actually of legal drinking age. And these are the days that really hold a special place in my heart. I had so much fun during that time, and there's something really unique about that time. It was such a in-between kind of feeling, this like liminal space, right? We thought we were adults, but looking back, we were not adults, at least not full adults. We were living this sort of surreal existence where we didn't have real responsibilities yet. Many of us, not everybody, but in a lot of cases, if you were a full-time college student, your responsibilities weren't as real life as a lot of people's. You know what I'm saying? I always worked in college, but my job was to pay my rent, which by the way was $300 a month. $300 a month. Can you imagine? I easily made that in one weekend at my serving job, even in, 2007, 2008. And then I would have to pay for, I don't know, groceries and I guess gas to get to and from my job, which was 10 minutes away from my apartment. And considering that my groceries consisted of Easy Mac and low-fat Yoplait yogurt and one can of generic store brand coffee per month, probably. I drank it black back then because I didn't want to spend the extra money on milk or creamer because I knew I wouldn't finish it before it expired. So anyway, my grocery bill was not high. My rent was not high. It was absolutely manageable for me to work part-time to pay those bills and, go to college. And like I said, for a lot of full-time college students, our responsibilities were minimal. They were pretty much to go to class and get good grades, at least good enough to graduate. I always knew that grad school was in my plan, so I was more concerned about my grades because I had to get into grad school. But I guess if you were just trying to graduate, your grades didn't even necessarily matter that much as long as you passed. I mean, a lot of my classes honestly didn't even require attendance. If I'm being completely honest, you could probably get away with not going a lot of the time, except for the ones that had attendance policies. As long as you had somebody you could get notes from, you could sleep through half of class. So it was like adulthood light, let's call it. That time came with some really important milestones for a lot of us though. And one of my favorite of those milestones is moving into your very first apartment. Most of the people that I knew in college lived in the dorms freshman and maybe sophomore year. And then everybody, rounded up a couple friends and got an apartment off campus. Not a single person I knew ever lived alone, I don't think. I mean, obviously there was a financial factor to this. We were broke college students and splitting rent and utilities with a roommate or, multiple roommates in a lot of cases was much cheaper than living alone. But I think a lot of it was a social aspect too. Like the level of social that I was in college is truly mind-blowing to me, you guys. I think of myself as a pretty solitary creature now as a 35-year-old adult, if I'm being honest. I love to do stuff alone. Wandering the aisles of Target or Whole Foods undisturbed by myself is a treat. I do not want to do errands with company. But in college, I don't know, we were just a bunch of super codependent, insecure clingers that needed to be with our friends all the time. I did everything with my friends and roommates in those days. We grocery shopped together, we went to the gym together, we got our nails done together, we partied together, we worked together sometimes. So obviously, when it came to living arrangements, we all wanted to live in an apartment full of our besties. This was like the dream in our minds. It would be a party all the time if you lived with your best friends. So some people were reasonable about it and lived with, 2 or 3 people. And then there were the kids that went big and they basically made their own little sorority or fraternity house just full of their friends. And they lived in houses with so many people, you couldn't even keep track of who all lived in the house. Those houses were always the worst because it was always like 1 or 2 bathrooms for, 9 people or something insane. And they were always super dirty because can you imagine 8 20-year-olds living together unsupervised? I mean, those houses were not somewhere that you wanted to spend time. When I was in college, we had this group of guy friends who all lived together in this big old house. And it was one of those weird old houses that had been added onto and there'd been construction done to it probably so many times over the years. So there would just mysteriously be a staircase that you would discover and it would lead up to a window that would somehow lead into a bedroom. I mean, it was just like a weird old house. I think there were 2 kitchens. I'm pretty sure there were 2 kitchens, one upstairs and one downstairs. I don't know why, but we partied there all the time and we called it the Ocho because there were always 8 guys that lived there. And when I tell you guys, it was disgusting. It was always so dirty. I mean, 8 college guys in a house that threw parties every single weekend. You can imagine, right? It was not good. And the guys were always fighting because, some people are always a little bit more tolerant about dirtiness and messiness than others. And I remember one time, one of the guys dumped, I think it was chicken wings like a to-go container of chicken wings into another one of the guy's bed, like into his sheets, because he was really mad that the other guy never cleaned, or it was some conflict about cleaning that led to one of the guys dumping takeout food into the other guy's sheets. And this was a thing too. Roommates were always fighting about this type of thing. I remember so many passive aggressive notes from roommates over the years. One time, one of my roommates got so mad that she was the only one that cleaned that she intentionally left a can of soda that another one of our roommates drank sitting on the kitchen counter, like right in the middle of the kitchen counter for like weeks. She would clean around it just to see how long it would take the other roommate to notice it and throw it away. I don't know if she actually ever did notice it and throw it away. I don't remember what happened. But I would be willing to bet actually that roommate one, the clean one, ended up throwing that away. And now that I think about it, I don't actually remember doing much cleaning ever. And I'm a really clean person. So I think that in general, it's safe to say that we were all just really gross as college kids. But these apartments were just expected to be kind of gross. Like they were full of college kids all the time. And off-campus apartments in a college town were kind of unofficial college housing. These were not apartments that most real adults would live in. So even though they weren't actually on campus and there was no official affiliation with the universities, they were almost completely full of only college kids. So when I went to the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, I lived with two of my best friends that I grew up with who also went to school in La Crosse, and we lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment behind a bar called Chuck's. So if any La Crosse people are listening, you guys know exactly where I'm talking about. Across the hall in our same building from us was a group of guys that we knew from UWL, one of whom was dating another one of our friends from high school, and then at least 2 or 3 other groups of people that we knew either from high school or the dorms on campus lived in apartment buildings next door and across the street. So it was just this little, compound of people that we knew, and all of these college apartments were kind of like that. And even though we had apartments with our names on the lease, our own names, and we had to, buy our own toilet paper and dish soap or whatever, it wasn't real adulthood. It wasn't full adulthood. But moving into your first apartment was such a milestone. It was so exciting to all of us. We really did feel so grown up. And it's funny because these apartments were so bare bones. Looking back, they were absolutely nothing special. I actually was floored when I moved to Texas from Wisconsin by how nice the college apartments were in Texas. But in La Crosse, Wisconsin, these apartments were nothing special. But we made them special. And do you know how we did that? We went to Ikea. Now, there were a couple of standard Ikea items that I feel like everybody had in their college apartments around this time. First, you absolutely had to have one, if not multiple, of those cube bookshelf things with those canvas storage containers that would slide into them. Bonus if your canvas storage basket thingies matched the color scheme of your room and you arranged them in a kind of checkerboard pattern within the cube shelf. My bedroom in my first off-campus apartment was brown and orange themed. Brown and orange, you guys, in 2007, in a bedroom, a teenage girl's bedroom. I had a chocolate brown comforter on my bed and orange throw pillows. I did sprinkle in a little pink in there too, but I think I thought I was being unique by doing brown and orange instead of brown and pink like everybody else kind of did at that time. I also feel like there was a lot of paisley going on, like maybe it was the throw blanket or there was some paisley situation happening in that room. So naturally, my storage cubes, which housed my Aussie hairspray and my Garnier Scrunch Gel and my Victoria's Secret body spray collection, they were brown to match my room, of course. And the only thing I had on my bedroom wall, by the way, was a giant framed Breakfast at Tiffany's poster and a bulletin board, like an actual regular cork board that had a bunch of pictures, actual physical pictures that I had probably gotten developed from a disposable camera, and maybe some magazine cutouts on it in a pretty collage. peak 2000s decor. Speaking of wall art, we all had to have a photo print or maybe a photo canvas from Ikea hanging above our hand-me-down couch that one of our roommates inherited from a grandma or an aunt when she redecorated her TV room. And it was always Marilyn Monroe, the Eiffel Tower, or Audrey Hepburn. I swear those were the only options for wall art in a 2007 college girl apartment. We had a black and white Audrey Hepburn poster hanging very awkwardly above our couch. And then later, I think we had those Warhol Marilyn Monroe prints. I mean, right on theme. Our living room was actually a sight to behold. We had a huge, clunky, kind of 70s style wood coffee table, obviously a hand-me-down, with a navy blue, like puffy 90s style leather sectional couch, a huge tube TV, you know, like those big 90s TVs with a big old back. I think we inherited the TV from my mom actually, and it was definitely from the 90s. It was our TV in our TV room before we upgraded to like the flat screen that was really high tech in the 2000s. And then, because we were obviously really good at interior design, we had one of those awful plastic lamps with multiple bulbs, and each one of the little plastic shades around the bulbs was a different color plastic. It looked like it came from Limited too, but we thought that was amazing. And then on top of all of this, we added a bright pink kind of shag rug, which was also, by the way, too small for the room. It was a very small rug. I'm sure it looked really gorgeous over the kind of faded medium brown Berber carpeting that was standard in our apartment. And then obviously we put some Christmas lights around the window. I actually remember the first time I saw Christmas lights around somebody's window in their apartment, and I legitimately thought that was like sophisticated and absolutely adorable. I was like, wow, that is the best interior design idea I've ever seen in my life. When I moved to Texas in 2008, I upgraded my bedroom theme because I got new bedding when I moved. So I upgraded from the orange and brown to the quintessential late 2000s color palette, hot pink and black. Guys, okay, picture it. Hot pink, borderline neon, like the brightest pink you can get, sheets. A black and white comforter, a hot pink fleece throw blanket over the black and white comforter on top of the hot pink sheets. My Breakfast at Tiffany's poster, the background of which was pink, above the bed. And then above my desk, I had my bulletin board with my photo collage, along with a couple of sorority paddles and then wood letters from Hobby Lobby that spelled out AOE, which is my sorority's like motto abbreviated. And those letters were painted hot pink with black ivy stenciled onto them. I mean, chef's kiss. Chef's freaking kiss. My shower curtain was zebra print, and I had hot pink bathroom rugs, so the whole suite like tied in together. And if that wasn't enough, I had my collection of Victoria's Secret pink stuffed mini dogs proudly displayed all in like a little line on my windowsill. The apartment where I lived in 2008, 2009-ish was actually super nice. It was kind of a little ways off of campus, so it wasn't all college kids. The weird thing about that apartment was the way the entrance was set up. You kind of walked, when you came in through the front door, you kind of walked directly into a hallway where you were facing the side of the kitchen counter, and it was really narrow, it was really small. You had to take like a sharp turn to the left in order to get in. So because of that, you couldn't actually get a couch inside the apartment, and we know because we tried. There just wasn't enough room to get the couch through the door before you had to turn it, so you couldn't get a couch in there. So instead, we just had two of those kind of eggshell style chairs in our living room with our little black Ikea dining room table. But that was by far the best apartment I lived in as an undergrad, like no question. There were normal people, like non-college students living in that apartment complex, so we felt very cool and very grown up, as you can imagine. Speaking of feeling cool and grown up, I'm going to wrap up this conversation today by giving you my top 5 coolest things to have in your college apartment in the year 2008. Starting with number 5, wall murals. I don't know what it was about wall murals, but they had a moment for a while, at least with people that I knew. These were basically the precursor to the peel and stick wallpaper. But instead of it just being a pattern like wallpaper, it was a big old mural that it was a sticker and you'd stick it on your wall. I feel like either a giant map or maybe a wave of some kind or some sort of tree scene. A lot of just nature themed scenes were very popular. This was the beginning stages of the hipster era. And, you know, this has evolved, I guess, into peel and stick wallpaper, like I said, which I do love. So I guess I can't really say anything. But I do want to go on the record by saying I never had a wall mural in my apartment. Number 4, anything mirrored or mercury glass. This had such a huge moment during the kind of faux glam era, like that tacky glam era of the late 2000s and early 2010s. And I went really hard on this. At one point, every single accessory in my bedroom was mirrored. Picture frames, jewelry boxes, a tray on my dresser for my perfumes, candle holders. I think I had a mirrored like photo album. I mean, everything. I never had those mirrored nightstands. You guys know which ones I'm talking about. But oh my God, I wanted them so badly. And I never got them. Bonus, if you paired your mirrored accessories with a faux fur white fluffy rug and a framed picture of the Eiffel Tower right above your bed, I mean, so chic. So chic. Or so we thought. Number 3, anything damask or zebra print, or maybe both if you were really, really into prints. I had the black and white damask print literally everywhere during this era. This was paired with my hot pink and black color palette, and I thought it was the chicest thing I had ever seen. But then when I lived in my sorority house in 2009, my side of the room was pink and black with the damask, and my roommate's side was white and kind of like a light, almost aqua blue with zebra. We both had Audrey Hepburn posters, Breakfast at Tiffany's posters above our beds, but different ones, different color palettes. We thought that we were geniuses by putting these 2 color palettes and these 2 patterns together. We thought it was the most beautiful, creative, amazing thing we had ever laid eyes on. We even had pink and blue rugs on the floor that we purposefully layered on top of each other. We did use this room as one of the stops on the house tour day during Rush, where we would take prospective girls who were looking to join the sorority through the house. This was the room that we showed them. So clearly the whole chapter agreed that it was very, very cute. Number 2, Victoria's Secret pink bedding. Do you guys remember this? Victoria's Secret pink obviously was the wardrobe of many college students in the 2000s. But at some point they came out with bedding, and it had that iconic pink and white polka dot pattern on it. I think the comforter might have even been reversible. I wanted this so badly, but it was so expensive. I mean, I don't remember how much it was, but I remember thinking it was outrageously expensive, and I just couldn't do it with my waitressing money. So I kept my little, $20 room essentials sheets from Target and just envied anyone who had the Victoria's Secret pink bedding. And number 1, the coolest and also probably most important thing to have in your college apartment in 2008, empty liquor bottles on top of your kitchen cabinets. This was not only cool to have, but I feel like it was almost mandatory. If I'm totally honest, like if you never polished off a bottle of UV vodka and then climbed up onto your counter in order to perfectly position the empty UV blue bottle next to an empty jumbo bottle of Barefoot Chardonnay, did you even live in a crappy apartment in the 2000s? No. I think the answer is no. So on that note, I'm going to wrap this episode up. As you can imagine, I have more to say about college. So I think next week we are going to talk about spring breaks in college in the 2000s, which really seems like a great way to end the 2000s college experience trilogy of episodes. So until then, have a fabulous week. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. I'll be back next week. Until then, bye.